author of 6 books. He is today a syndicated columnist based with the San Francisco Chronicle. He is a contributing editor at The Nation and editor-in-chief of truthdig.com, one of the Internet's finest liberal websites. He is a clinical professor of communications at the Annenberg School of the University of Southern California. One of the things that distinguishes Bob Scheer from other critics of the Iraq War is that, as you know, many of the people that are now criticizing the war are criticizing it in terms of, well, it hasn't been managed correctly. If only they had followed this plan, or if only they had had this person in the position. From the very beginning, what comes through Bob Scheer's articles, and you can check them out on the internet and the archives, is a sense of deep moral outrage and moral indignation. You just see the passion in this man's writings. So when he agreed to come and speak at this conference, it was a tremendous honor. His title of his talk was actually a combination of 2 of his op-eds. Ike was right, and we are becoming what we despise. Please welcome Robert Scheer.
Thank you. I feel sort of like the atheist invited to address the Episcopalian congregation. Some people must be muttering, who let him in, and what is he going to say? And in fact, I've been thinking about this a lot all week, and a half century ago, I hate to admit it, when I was at City College in New York, we had a wonderful building there built with the stone from the subway. When they dug the subway, they built something called Shepherd Hall, the Great Hall. And we had alcoves in the cafeteria, and the great City College was the great school of immigrant kids, the Harvard of the poor. Had more Nobel Prize winners than any college in America at one point, undergraduate education. And we had about 20 different socialist alcoves. Had vegetarian ones, we had everything else. And the Trotskyists and the Stalinists and the this one and the that one, and sort of legendary going back at City College. And then there was one alcove, and I didn't agree with them, but I admired their courage. And these people believed in Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek and Ayn Rand and so forth. And they were very strange, and they didn't, no one really talked to them or anything. And I've thought about it a lot over the years, one reason being this website that I edit, TruthDig, is a site which, by the way, I'm very proud of it, and we won the Webby for Best Political Blog, and we're getting an award Tuesday night, and I feel very good about it. But one reason we're still in business is because Lou Rockwell and another site called antiwar.com send us a lot of traffic and readers, and so I checked out those sites, and obviously, I've been checking out libertarian thought. I've even voted for a few libertarians in my day. But the larger view I have of all this is that, in fact, those fellas in the alcove were closer to the truth than the fellas in the other 20 alcoves. And I say this regretfully because I was raised in a generation that believed in FDR. FDR was a god in my house. And, we, like I say, came from garment worker parents, and we looked to the New Deal as salvation and what have you. But at this point, looking at what has happened to the country, I give up the federal government. The programs that I care about really have been reduced to insignificance. I mean, Bill Clinton was a guy I voted for. Oh, I'm sorry, is this not... Am I doing something wrong? No. Okay, I'll speak up. And then they'll say the guy is shouting and so forth, and they'll show the passion. But, Bill Clinton ended the last federal poverty program. The earlier attempt at a poverty program really was destroyed by Lyndon Johnson because of his foreign adventure in Vietnam. And when I look at the programs that the federal government is involved in that's supposed to help the vulnerable, help the poor, help the needy, level the playing field, all the things that I care about, they're minuscule compared to what's done for corporations. Bill Clinton and the Telecommunication Act, Bill Clinton and the Financial Services Modernization Act. When I look at all the lobbying and all the perks, and then particularly when I look at what General Eisenhower referred to President Eisenhower as the military-industrial complex. If one were to propose a swap, let's just do away with the federal government, take our chances with state governments, take our chances in the private sector, I'd go for that bargain myself. Now, as far as my appreciation of Eisenhower, I'm not new to this. Probably the bravest thing I've done in my life was I wore an I Like Ike button in the Bronx when I was a kid. And I did like him. I thought he was the general who understood war and its risks. I to this day, still think Eisenhower deserves a great credit for ending the Cold War, or beginning the end of the Cold War, when he brought Khrushchev to the United States, showed Khrushchev the farm fields of Kansas and so forth, invited the notion of peaceful coexistence and competition. And most importantly, Eisenhower was very aware of the dangers of foreign involvements. He's the one who refused to put ground troops into Vietnam. That remained for John Kennedy, who was somehow more admired by liberals. I don't know why. But Eisenhower was very cautious. And in his farewell address, a document that we used to pay more attention to, but is more vital than ever, Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex. And even though I have a great deal of respect for our previous speaker, Karen Kwiatkowski, I can never pronounce it correctly, and we actually made her our Truth Digger of the Week on our site, and I think she's one of the bravest and clearest thinking individuals in the country. I don't think our problem began with the abandonment of the, or the adoption of the Constitution and the abandonment of the Articles of Confederation. I think the problem becomes with the whole notion of empire and the obsession with the national security state. And I say this in part as a journalist. I know when you write about local issues, when you write about domestic issues, even at national level, you can demand to see the documents. You can demand to get the facts. And your readers support you in that demand. And your editors support you in that demand. You can tell the city council, wait a minute, we have, even without sunshine laws, we have a right to know what you decided at that meeting and what money changed hands and so forth. When you talk about national security, we lose all those rights. That's what Daniel Ellsberg, one of the bravest guys in the country who's sitting here and is going to be speaking tomorrow, is all about. The Pentagon Papers was a basically academic study. I remember I was one of those who read the Pentagon Papers quite early on, and at first I was disappointed. The thing had detail and texture and complexity. I thought it was going to have the hot stuff. Where are the good parts, And it was really a very thoughtful examination of how we got into Vietnam and how did this travesty occur and so forth. There wasn't anything in the Pentagon Papers that we didn't have a right to know. We paid for this scholarly study, and they didn't want us to read it because it was an embarrassment, an enormous embarrassment, because it revealed that they never believed in the war. We know that now. McNamara, you see the movie Fog of War, where he says 3.4 million Indochinese died in this war, 59,000 American troops, and he clearly confesses that he never believed in it for a second. We have the Lyndon Johnson tapes, the Johnson Library, where Lyndon Johnson in 1964, in a conversation with Senator Russell, said, I could never justify sending a young American to die over there. I can't see any national interest in it. But he had to do it. Why? Because Goldwater would use it against him in the election. That kind of cynicism, the lying, the deceit that takes place when national security is invoked, that is not possible with other issues. You can't get away with it. So there is something very special about the national security state. I know libertarians don't like the idea of big government and so forth. But big government becomes particularly treacherous when you can evoke the fear the people have of the foreigner. That's what George Washington, probably a great libertarian, said when he warned about foreign entanglements. And when Eisenhower spoke, and I just want to quote a few paragraphs from Eisenhower, it couldn't be more relevant to today.